I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. This was the opening line of Jack Nicholson's monologue in the movie The Departed. When I first seen that movie 17, 18 years ago, that always left quite the impression on me. Now some of you may not like the things that I'm about to say in this video, and some of you may vehemently disagree with what I put forth here, and that's fine. But you know, I'm not really interested in arguing. I'm not interested in debating. In fact, some of you, I'm here to smash your idols. I'm here to rip these high and lofty notions of yours out of your intellectual ivory tower and bring them down here in the mud, the muck, and the filth, and to test them against the harsh, cruel blade of reality. I am here to slaughter your sacred cows. I know a lot of this is self-aggrandizing, but I couldn't resist. You know, I have been thinking a lot lately about reason, about justifications, and about moralizations. You know, this whole idea, this whole concept of reason, I've come to see it as, in a way, it's a very vague concept. It's a really vague idea. And I see people in these circles, they come up with these justifications, with these notions, these quotes. One of the big ones I see is that our survival as a people is non-negotiable. Which I agree with this. I agree with it completely. But then, I also see the same thought leaders coming up with all of these sort of with these justifications, these reasons as to why our survival is just, why it is morally correct. Now, as far as reason goes, and myself, you know, a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about, I am also guilty of myself. I'm not above, you know, being self-critical. Someone's car alarm went off over there on the other side of the river. But I'm not above being self-critical, and I have been guilty of some of these things myself. But reason, the age of reason, you know, the Enlightenment, I think reason has been a part of the Western psyche. Perhaps going all the way back to Socrates. And if you think about it, some of these thought leaders that come up with these reasons and justifications. Now, I am not immune to this, like I said myself. One of the things I really got into talking to, and I gave my justifications, my reasons. One of these things was the fact that if you are pro-white in a Western nation, here in America or elsewhere, by the very federal government or the respective governments, the regimes of all these nations, if you are openly pro-white, you are going to be viewed as a criminal by the very system that you labor under. And I provided my justifications for this. these justifications and these reasons have played out over the last couple of years, you have so many people, especially over in Europe and elsewhere. Sam Melia comes to mind, several others, where they are just labeled, these activists who are not breaking any laws, but the system has conjured up and bent the very laws, saying that they stir up hate and this and that, and they get convictions. So my justifications and my reasoning, I'm not immune to having reasons myself now, was that, hey, since you're being viewed as a criminal, why not embrace criminality? Now, I'm not encouraging anyone to go out there and do anything crazy, do anything illegal. I can't. But what I am saying is that you should take time to study various criminal organizations, study outlawry, because that is what you are to the system, even if you're not committing any crimes. That's my justifications. That's my reasoning. So see, the Western psyche has been plagued by this justification and reasoning for thousands of years now. In the past, those who were truly superior, and I mean even to this day, those who are truly superior, they do what they will. They do what they can, and the rest of us have to bear it. This is the law of the jungle, you could say. And it is, unfortunately, what we see today. And those that are above you, the very elites, the government, they will continue to do these things. And yes, they may have their little reasons and their little justifications, but really, at the end of the day, reason and justification is truly window dressing. Now, I understand the application of reason and justification as a way to perhaps reach the masses, to get more people to think as you do. But really, other than that, at the end of the day, I consider a lot of it to be window dressing. It is advertisement. Now, one of the things I noticed when I got into this 5-6 years ago was the popularity of online debates and arguing, just back and forth, back and forth. In a way, I've got to agree with Nietzsche that arguing is really the only thing a man has left when he has no other recourse, no other course of action. I don't argue with people online. I really don't. Now, I'll insult people if I'm insulted first. Don't really care, But I'm not here to argue ideas. I'm not a debater. And in fact, while I do understand some of the utility in debates, the idea of debating your enemies, your political enemies, I find that to be very gay. Why are you debating? Now, I can understand a friendly discussion, a friendly conversation with your comrades, or people that have similar ideas that you do. But as far as debating your enemies, it's really pointless. It's really gay. Why are you trying to give justification and reason to your enemies? And I know the old argument, well, it's a platform to get our ideas out there. Maybe so. But a lot of these people, I can say this, in the 5-6 years that I have been in this, I can count on two hands the number of debates that I've actually sat down and listened to. And the only ones where people that I genuinely liked and that I've interacted with. I don't watch them often, and I don't fucking care. I don't care about your debates. And to those of you who get hyped up for these blockbuster debates, look in the fucking mirror. Are you any fucking different than the average retard out here getting hyped up on Sundays for a sports ball? I mean, really. Hell, I mean, even their ideas, even what they do is even more sensible, because at the end of the day, one team wins and another team loses, unless they go to a draw. In debates, is there really any system? Because each side's going to say that their champion, their intellectual warrior, is who won the debate. It's really fucking pointless. Debating is gay. I do not care about my enemies. I don't care what they think. And I'm not going to debate them. I'm not a debater. I have no interest. I just want to do. You know, that is something people forget. You know, it's good to think and it's good to consider. But really, it is best, action is best, to will something into existence by your own sweat, blood, and tears. You know, I see people throw around terms like, oh, you're straw manning. Oh, you're ad hominem. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even know what these terms mean. In the past, I have read what they mean, but I did not commit them to memory. Why did I not commit them to memory? Because I don't see them as having any sort of fucking utility for me. I don't care. You know? I'm not going to commit something to my memory, and really I don't want to waste time on anything that does not serve some purpose in my everyday life, or that I cannot apply it to my everyday life. I know some of you out there, and I will be honest, I have been very honest in the past that I am not the most well-read person, especially on philosophy. The only two philosophers that I can say that I really have enjoyed reading is Nietzsche himself and Ludwig Klages, who is much less well-known. He's also a German philosopher. I know I hear people talk about, you know, Platonic idea, Platonism. They talk about Kant, Schopenhauer. There is a bit of Schopenhauer that I've read that I agree with, but I'm not going to sit here and waste all this time reading something that if I don't feel like I can apply it in my own life. I made this mistake. I made this very mistake probably about 6 months ago, shortly before my daughter was born. I actually sat down. I had some time off leading up to her birth. And in my free time, late at night, out of a sort of morbid curiosity, I read 2 books, 2 of the most vile, grotesque things that I have ever read. And the books were Iron Gates and Bluebird, It's Secret. I would not encourage people to read this shit. The shit reads like a sort of grotesque, pedophilic, violent, sort of MK Ultra programming manual. I did not enjoy reading them, but I read them out of a sort of morbid curiosity, because I am very well and aware who had written those books, who owned the publishing house, Martinet Press, who funded it, the feds, the FBI, you know. But I wanted to read it to see if I could glean any sort of insight into the master snitch himself who had written these works, Joshua Caleb Sutter. I have read a little bit of 09A literature. Not that I'm interested, but just out of a sort of curiosity. But I read 600 pages of just grotesque prose for about what I would say was 5 to maybe 10 pages of genuinely valuable insight into the mind of the author himself. I wasted probably a whole week of my free time when I could have been researching something else or reading something else. Just for, now I will say, the 5 to 10 pages of information that I gleaned into his mind, I thought was very prescient. Could be very useful, but I had to wade through 600 fucking pages of absolute filth and shit to get there. I ain't about that shit. I'm not about reading these big, massive works of these various philosophers if I feel that I'm not getting any fucking use out of it. And I would discourage you from doing it as well. You know, time is of an essence. So, and another reason why I'm not all that well read in philosophy is I also feel like that some of these ideas that are put forth by various philosophers were ideas that I had came upon myself, and I don't want these ideas to shade, to influence my own sort of experience, my own thoughts. Because I'm serious, there are several occasions of thoughts that I have had in the past, sort of, you could say, philosophical thoughts, that I had came up with, that I had synthesized myself through my own life experience, what I've witnessed happen to myself and around me, that Nietzsche had talked about, which gave me this other thought, that perhaps maybe I've never really had a truly original thought that no one else throughout time and history have had themselves. Maybe there is nothing new under the sun, per se. You know, I'm not about wasting my time on these high intellectual notions and concepts unless I get some sort of utility out of them. Hey, I'm saying now, if you've read some of these philosophers and you're well read and you've been able to apply their concepts and their ideas in your own life, more power to you. Who am I to judge? But what I do discourage is just this rote sort of regurgitation of these ideas. I mean, what good are these fucking ideas unless you can apply them? I mean, even this video, that's one reason why I've not been producing many things lately. It's like, most people don't listen. A few of you may listen. But are you able to apply this in your own everyday existence to better your situation? Now, lastly, looking at my own life. You know, I mentioned a minute ago that some of the ideas that I've learned over the last 5 years that, say, Nietzsche had are ideas I had myself. Even before I knew who Nietzsche was. And you know, my own life experience has been a very varied, I've had a sort of varied existence. I have done some good things in life, things that I'm proud of, and I've also done many things that I'm not too proud of at all. You know, I mentioned earlier, I want my environment to be a product of me. Inadvertently, I believe this quote, this statement, has influenced the trajectory of my life quite greatly. You know, in the past, I've mentioned that I've been a criminal, been to jail. I've been a petty thief. I've been a thief. I have dealt drugs on occasion. And I've also been a drug addict. You know, I was not raised in that sort of environment. In fact, my family was outstanding. I had outstanding parents. I had a very bright future, probably up until I finished college shortly before. But I wanted to live. I wanted to experience things. I wanted to see how life was. I did not want to be a square who just lived a bland sort of existence of trying to acquire wealth and prestige. I wanted to actually experience things. I wanted to experience victories and tragedies. And I have experienced both. I have been down amongst the lowest of the low. I have seen the dark abyss, but I have also been on top of some mountains. You know, I wanted there has always been, even as a child, there was always a sort of meanness, a sort of rebelliousness that was in me. Most children, most of you, I would say, they went through this sort of experience. As a child, I was always really sneaky. I remember my dad telling me years and years ago that I was always much more secretive about my meanness than my younger brother was. And he said he always knew that he would worry about this. It's just part of my personality. It's just part of who I am. You know, I would hide things. Compared to my younger brother, who was just much more in your face with his, what he wanted to do. You know, I wanted to be a product. I wanted to produce my own environment. And you know, growing up, I had a bright future. I did really well in high school, both in athletics and academically. But I started to see, say in my senior year of high school, I did not want this. I did not want to follow a path to success that everyone else, the surefire path, I guess you could say. And it wasn't even surefire, you know. I do have a resentment from when I was in high school that if you're somewhat academically inclined, the only way, and this was 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 19 years ago, the only way to success if you're academically inclined is to go to university, go to college. I regret that. I resent it. There's many paths. Should have probably just went to trade school. You know, honestly, I had no idea what I wanted to get a degree in. But I, upon finishing college, rejected many of these things. And I made my environment a product of me. I embraced a sort of rugged lifestyle, a degenerate lifestyle, you would say. I mean, doing drugs is not healthy. None of these things are really healthy, but really, in America, criminality is one of the two ways that young men can experience adventure. Maybe the other is going to the military. And I mean, who really wants to risk giving their life for Zog these days? Maybe 50, 60, 40 years ago. But today, no, definitely. You know, I don't regret any of these things. And when my environment was a product of myself and the situation became untenable 6 years ago, I, once again, changed environments. I made my environment a product of me. I found myself. I found my way back to myself, my old self, you could say. I had to help myself. And I have managed to build a pretty fucking good environment for myself and my family. You know, what I'm basically trying to boil it all down to, I didn't mean to go off that far on that tangent in this video. what I'm trying to say is don't waste your life reading books that have no utility. Get out there and live. Get out there and get life experience. Don't be a coward living vicariously. You know, I seen a quote earlier. I forget who said it. I seen it somewhere online, but it said that those who are often called mean-spirited are called so by those who are too cowardly to do things, to call out things. I forget who said it. I'd have to go back. You know? And I also read a quote by one of my friends on Twitter. It was a quote by Julius Evola. And I don't remember it. I'm just going to paraphrase it. It was basically, why garner all this knowledge if this knowledge is useless and you cannot apply it to your own consciousness? Don't be afraid to take chances and risks. I mean, really, our ancestors did it so much more often. They had to. That is part of the Indo-European. It's part of the Aryan sort of spirit. You know, you can look at the past and you can look at all these philosophies and you can learn from them, but what is discouraging, if you are of a certain sort of visual capability, of a certain high IQ, what is preventing you from innovating? You know, the past is dead. Really. You should be looking forward, not backwards. You're not going that way. And we really need to apply this. Innovate. You can take things from the past. You can take things from a variety of philosophies and worldviews. And I know some people are against syncretism, but hey, aren't we all just practicing a sort of syncretism? I hear shit that people I don't like, I hear that shit every day. And I'm like, hey, I actually kind of agree with that. I may not like them, but perhaps they've made me consider something. And one of the harsh realities is that your enemies can in reality be one of your greatest teachers. You can learn things from them and weaponize it perhaps against them. So, don't be afraid to innovate. Don't be afraid to explore. Don't confine yourself to just one thing, one worldview, one ideology. And you know, perhaps become like Icarus in the old Greek tale. Icarus flew too close to the sun and perished. But by God, he gave us a story that has been passed down for thousands of years and that we can learn from ourselves. I think I've rambled on long enough and ready to get fishing. I know many of you will probably disagree with some of these things, but I don't really care. I might consider your point of view, but I'm going to say I don't think that you're going to change my mind. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.